is here with us today. She's also going to be receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award in a couple of hours at our ANCA Western Region Gala banquet. She just returned from a trip to Armenia as part of a congressional delegation Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which also included Congresswoman ANCA-WR and Congressman Frank Pallone. So we're all eager to hear from her, I'm sure, and to hear her impressions and any news she wants to impart. So I'll go ahead and let her speak, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. The COGAL, as it's referred to, Congressional Delegation Trip to Armenia, that was headed by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, was the first time that anyone of the rank of the Speaker of the House of Representatives had ever visited Armenia. Congresswoman Pelosi is the highest ranking American official ever to travel to Armenia. She was moved by what she saw. She was, emotionally touched going to the museum and to the Eternal Flame. And she was very clear in terms of the United States' commitment to protect the single democracy in that area that is really bordered, for the most part, by countries that are run by autocrats. I really think that this is a particularly important point in Armenia's development. I think that it's pivotal to Armenia's survival. And we are committed to help Armenia retain its democracy. And it is crystal clear that the bullies in the region do not intend to protect Armenia. So our country, our government, is poised to be as helpful as we possibly can be to protect the democratic principles that have been embraced by the Armenian people. In making that trip, there were throngs of people everywhere we went, waving American flags and Armenian flags. They had joyous smiles on their faces, were snapping pictures, and clearly were thrilled that 4 days after Azerbaijan invaded Armenia, Speaker of the House did not hesitate. She had already planned to go, and she completed that trip. And I think that was very important to the Armenian people as well. So there are two resolutions. One has already been introduced, chaired by Congressman Adam Schiff, which I'm a co-author of. That resolution condemns the acts by Azerbaijan and resolves that they must return the land that they are now invading to the Armenian people and cease and desist. There will be another resolution which I am authoring, which Congressman Schiff is co-authoring, and we anticipate that many of the members of the Armenian caucus and elsewhere within the Congress will support it. And this particular resolution condemns the war crimes that have been committed by Azerbaijan, and it lists over 15 war crimes dating back to the war in 2020, a number of which I will spell out in my comments later tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's open it up for questions. Yes.
Hi, I'm Arak Hachaturan from Speier, the Armenian newspaper. Can you give us an idea? You received several briefings there, I'm sure, especially from the Defense Department. How deeply do they go into characterizing, especially the most recent attacks, some of the gruesome human rights violations? There were videos of a woman just being mutilated, a soldier being mutilated. Were you privy to that evidence?
I can't say we were privy to the evidence. The Minister of Defense did reference the soldier who was seen on tape who was wounded, was being provided medical attention, subsequently was returned to the Armenians as a corpse. So he had died in captivity, and the question becomes, were there untoward things that were done to him, or a lack of health care provided to him? The woman who was mutilated, stripped naked, and had a writing written across her torso was not referenced specifically by the minister, but certainly was a story that was being told by many when we were in Armenia. It is more than grotesque, and it is a war crime and must be dealt with in a manner that all these countries concur in the Geneva Convention and many of the other conventions and treaties that have been signed. They have to stand by them.
It took us 100 years. An organization like ANC went from city to state legislature, then the Congress. Finally, we got Armenian genocide. How long gonna take Congress and United States President to recognize Artsakh as a republic, independent country?
Well, that's a very good question. It did take us a very long time to do what was patently obvious and that countries around the world had already designated as a genocide when the Ottoman Empire slaughtered 1.6 million Armenians. As to recognizing Artsakh, I can't really give you a timeline on that.
Thank you.
Another one. Having essentially witnessed kind of firsthand what's happening now in Armenian sovereign territory, is the United States at one point going to cut its military aid to Azerbaijan because it's using our tax dollars to attack my homeland?
I had a conversation with someone within the DOD who confirmed for me that no, there is no money going to no money going to Azerbaijan since the release of the money that was provided in 2018. So while there was a waiver that was issued this year, there is no money, there will be no money going to Azerbaijan.
But is there military equipment sending to Azerbaijan?
No, there is no military equipment being sent to Azerbaijan.
I have a question. Considering especially the media's coverage of the conflict and consistent calls from different officials of the United States as well as other countries calling on both sides to stop hostilities, is there any plans and was there any discussion in Armenia with the officials there to install monitoring devices at the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan and potentially hand over the monitoring devices or the responsibility to monitor to an organization like OSCE to determine exactly who's violating the ceasefires between the two sides?
Let me be crystal clear. The United States government has no question that Azerbaijan invaded Armenia. We have strong evidence to reflect that. Now, we have said to the Armenian government, tell us what you need, and we will review that list and attempt to provide them the assistance they need.
Do they give you a list?
I think they're in discussions with the Department of Defense presently.
The U.S. is ready to help?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Anything else?
Anything else?
I always have a lot of questions.
But let me just say this for the diaspora and for the Armenians in Armenia. Armenia is at an inflection point. Our unwillingness historically to provide military arms was out of an obvious concern that they could fall into the hands of Russians. We know the viciousness of Vladimir Putin and his intention to recreate the USSR as it was back in 1920. Armenia would then be subsumed within that. Armenia realizes that they are at a pivotal point. If they pivot to the West, I think there will be strong support, not just from the United States, but other EU countries to be of assistance to them. But that means pushing back on Russian interests and making it clear that they are no longer going to be a handmaiden of Russia.
Here's a question. In the worst scenario, Russia is engaged in huge military operation in Ukraine, and is calling now reserve. What happens if Russia tomorrow decides it's going to pull out from Artsakh? Will U.S. help?
I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer.
I have a question, if you don't mind. So at this time, Armenia is obviously in a very difficult position because specifically for the civilians of Artsakh, Russia is acting as the only security guarantor. Would the United States be willing to, or are policymakers interested in the United States filling that vacuum should Russia pull out, or if Armenia were to strengthen its relationship with the United States instead of Russia?
I would certainly advocate for that. I can't tell you what our government would do, but I would advocate for that.
I have a question about the recent travel advisory announced by the U.S. Embassy in Armenia as well as the French Embassy, encouraging U.S. citizens not to travel to the eastern regions as well as southern regions of Armenia. Is there any indication that there is an impending invasion by Azerbaijan or Turkey, either through Nakhichevan or from the side of Azerbaijan?
All I can say is that out of prudence and caution, that recommendation should be heeded.
You talked about the United States willing to assist Armenia if Armenia pivots to the West. Armenia, for the past 30 years, has essentially made sure, or has been forced to completely give its infrastructure to Russia, be that gas, electricity, communication, you name it. How would the United States look at that issue in its provision of assistance to Armenia?
Well, much like what we're witnessing in Ukraine and other areas, I mean, there has to be an adjustment made. The reliance on Russia for those services has got to be changed, and there's a weaning off process, of course. Okay, thank you very much.